Well, if the metrics want you to, if the metrics are considering margin of victory, and margin of victory is a relevant stat in the metrics, the net, or what have you, I would say Pitt has to move up a few spots after going on the road in a conference game and winning by 25, 90-65 victory for Pitt at Boston College tonight. I thought Pitt would beat Boston College. I think I predicted like a 4 or 6 point game or something like that. Certainly didn't predict a 25-point win for a team that was a 1-point favorite. I always know in football they say you get like 3 points for being at home or something like that. In basketball, is it like 26 or something? Pitt was -1. I think we saw earlier today heading into this game against Boston College. Boston College isn't any good, but you go on the road in a conference game. You're not supposed to win by 25 unless you're one of the elite teams in the league and you're playing one of the worst teams in the league. Although I guess Duke did that to Pitt not that long ago. What a blowout one. What a dominating performance by Pitt. Panthers make 16 3-pointers. Bub Carrington was awesome. The only thing that wasn't great for Pitt in this game was Quentin Post just dominated. But the thing is, he was the only player from Boston College who did anything positive, really. When it came down to it, nobody else really did much. McLaughlin had 10 points and Zachary had 9, but that's what you get for having 2 first names, right? You're not going to get into double digits when you're doing that kind of thing. Everybody else didn't really do much. Boston College made 27 field goals. Quentin Post had 14 of them. Pitt, by contrast, had a real spread out attack. 7 players scored in this game. Will Jefferson and KJ Marshall were the only guys who got on the court and didn't score, and neither one of them played more than 9 minutes. Anybody who played more than 9 minutes in this game scored multiple baskets, really, because everybody. Guillermo Diaz-Graham had 2 baskets. Ishmael Leggett had 3. Zach Austin had 3. Lowe and Federico had 4 each. Blake Hinson was 7 of 9 from the floor. And Bub Carrington, of course, the star of the night for Pitt. 10 of 18 from the floor. 7 of 12 from 3. He had 4 rebounds and 5 assists. He had 2 turnovers. Just an outstanding game. 37 minutes played in this one. And he was just on fire. He could not be... Quentin Post couldn't be stopped, and he scored 30. Bub Carrington couldn't really be stopped, and he scored 27. And he got his 27 a lot easier than Quentin Post got his 30. A dominating win for Pitt at a point where they need every bit of positive metrics that they can get. They had a huge opportunity for a big win on the road at Clemson on Tuesday night. They missed that opportunity, leaving 3 games in the regular season plus whatever the ACC tournament will bring. And the thing Pitt needs out of these 3 final regular season games and whatever the ACC tournament will bring is wins, number 1, and wins by a lot of points, number 2. And tonight, they went on the road. They won a game by a quarter century against a conference opponent, and they looked pretty impressive in doing so. And, I'm sure a lot of our time tonight will be spent talking about tournament resumes and whether they can make the NCAA tournament and what they need to make the NCAA tournament and whether they'll do this or whether they'll do that. But when it comes down to it, Pitt's playing really, really well. Pitt is as good as what game was it? After Blake Hinson scored 41 on a Saturday. Was that the Louisville game? I think it might have been. The following Monday, I did a Morning Pitt episode where I said, is Pitt the most dangerous team in America? And the reality is, they obviously went out and lost after that. But the reality is, this team, the way it's built with what they're good at and the players they have, can be on any given night the most dangerous team in America. Because on any given night, they can shoot like they have tonight. Now, tonight was a little bit beyond the pale, although they only tied their season high for 3-pointers made in a game. They didn't even set a new season high. But, they were about as good as they're going to be in this game tonight. But they are capable of reaching this level or something close to it just about any time they walk on the court. And as these offensive weapons continue to develop and as these offensive weapons continue to grow, they become a more and more dangerous team. And maybe Jeff Capel even found a little extra something he can throw out there with that pairing of Guillermo Diaz-Graham and Federico together on the court at the same time, which worked like a charm and to some extent, and we'll talk about this in a second, might have saved this game for Pitt. Going with Guillermo Diaz-Graham and Federico on the court at the same time very well may have saved this game for Pitt. And it was a decision that was made probably because Blake Hinson was in foul trouble. Hinson got his second foul at 13:43 to go, had to leave the game. At that point, Boston College went on a 12-2 run to cut a 12-point lead to a 2-point lead. It was 23-21. A few minutes later, Capel went with the dual big men, 2 of the 3 triplets on the court together, and the result was a 19-9 run in Pitt's favor with those 2 guys, Guillermo and Federico, scoring 11 out of the 19. Are they going to be able to play Federico and Guillermo together every game? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. But it was a little bit of a look at something they could do, not just the rest of this season, but what they might be able to do next year. That Guillermo could potentially slide to the 4 permanently, particularly after Blake Hinson's gone. That's going to be something that we could talk about here. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're 6 minutes into the show, and I'm already talking about next season. But a big win for Pitt tonight in multiple senses of the term, because number one, they need every win they can get. Every win they get from here on out is a big win. But to go on the road, to win by 25, and to look like you are one of the most dominant teams in America, understanding the opponents you were facing, that's impressive stuff. When you're trying to build a tournament resume, there are a lot of worse ways you could do it than to go on the road and win a conference game by 25. But it's a Panther-Lair Post-Game Show. It's what we do here after every road basketball game. Obviously, we won't have it after the Florida State or NC State games because those are both at home. But every game after that, whatever comes in the ACC tournament, whatever comes beyond that postseason event, we'll be live after the games right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know what we always ask you to do? Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. We have stuff every day of the week, really. Monday through Friday, we have the morning Pitt episodes where we talk about everything going on in the world of Pitt sports to get your day started. We have our weekly live show every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock with me and Jim Hammett and you. And then, of course, we have these post-game shows. Like I said, we did them after every football game. We do them after every road basketball game. And the best part about this is it's not just me sitting here talking for 45 minutes. You guys get involved too. You've got the chat screen over there. Post your comments and your questions. We'll read your comments. We'll answer your questions. We'll get to as many as we can. We don't always get through all of them because you guys have a lot of stuff to say and we run out of time. So if you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question, you can be a super chatter. There's a little $sign down there. You can click that and contribute to the podcast. And, we appreciate your support very much. We will be sure to read your comment and read your question. So let's jump into it now. We already got some super chatters lining up. Already got some chat. People are in the chat and jumping in as super chatters. And we'll start off with Michael B. Oh wait, all right, Michael B. We're gonna get to your super chat, but you guys, you've been asking for it. Well, some of you, like 3 of you, have been asking for it. Most of you are gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" But it is a weekend. I kept making the excuse after the Wake Forest game, after the Clemson game. It was a school night. It was a school night. We had to play it cool. We had to be responsible. But it's the weekend, so we got the whiskey. It's been a while. Probably since whatever the last road game was on a weekend. I forget what that was, the last Saturday road game. But if you're new around here, if you didn't stay, if you weren't there for all the post-game shows in the football season, we get the whiskey out. We throw one back. And it worked out well last year with the football season in the 2022 season because at the end of the Sun Bowl, we finished a bottle. And we finished it live on air. It was great. It made for great, compelling live stream podcast. So we'll get it out. This is the David E. What do they call themselves? Hidden Spring or something like that? Pennsylvania Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Shout out to them with the PA whiskey. But to putting Guillermo and Federico on the court together and getting a 19-9 run out of it that ultimately put the game away in the first half and led to Pitt's 25-point win, and to Bub Carrington, who had an awesome game. Forgot to open my chaser. Come on, man. This is a rookie mistake. This is what we get when we haven't done it in a while. All right, let's jump in. Super chatter. Michael B., he's always one of our regulars. We appreciate him. Michael says, hi, Chris. It's obvious Pitt really has no room for error if they want to get back to the NCAA tournament. And they answered that tonight with a big win. It's late in the season, so I'm going to ask, how many more wins does Pitt need? All right, so I have to sit here and say, I don't know. I don't know what that magic number is. I don't know what they need to accomplish. I just know they need to keep winning, right? You can't let Florida State or NC State get away. You've got to win those 2 games. All right, like I don't know what it will take to get them into the NCAA tournament, but I know that if they lose one of those 2 games, they're out. Right, and I think the chances might be pretty slim as it is right now. But if they lose one of those 2, I think the chances are nil, short of winning the ACC tournament, which if they shoot like they did tonight, they could do. Well, let's not get crazy here. So you've got to win those 2. And then it becomes a question of what you do in the ACC tournament. And I thought they were making a good point during the broadcast. When you get into these blowout games, conversations start to, there's... So what do you think Jeff Capel has done the best this year? Which, I mean, I'm covering the team who's on the winning end of that blowout, so I sort of enjoy those conversations. If it was the other way around, when it was the Wake Forest game, I don't want to hear about what Steve Forbes has done or how he's used the transfer portal. I don't give a good GD, right? Like, the team I'm covering is getting their tails kicked, so I don't want to hear your, conversations to kill time during a blowout loss. Flip side, when you're covering the team that's, winning like that, those conversations are interesting. But there was a point where they got into a conversation, and it seemed like, and I apologize for not for forgetting the names of the play-by-play and the color guy, but it's I think they sort of were missing. Their signals weren't connecting as they were having a conversation. And I think the point that the one guy was making, which I agree about, is it might be better for Pitt to avoid the double bye. So that you can get, they came in today as, if the season ended prior to today, they would be the 7 seed and they would play the winner of Virginia Tech and Louisville. All right, take that scenario where you are playing on day 2, you get a bye, you finish in the top 8, you get a bye, and you play on day 2 and you play the winner of Virginia Tech, Louisville. You take that game. You would like to have that game because you're going to add to your win total. You're going to get a conference win away from home. That's good, as opposed to getting the double bye where you're inevitably going to face a higher level of competition. Now, that doesn't mean you can't win those games. They've shown that they can win those games. They can beat the top teams in the conference because they have, outside of North Carolina. They've beaten Wake Forest. They've beaten Virginia. They've beaten Duke. They haven't beaten Clemson, but they've been able to beat the top teams in the conference. So it's not that they can't win that day 3 game, but playing on day 2, gives you an opportunity. I don't want to say it guarantees a win, but it gives you a much better opportunity of getting at least 1 win, and it increases the likelihood of you getting 2 wins. You can win a day 3 game. This team can win a day 3 game. I always get confused. Does that put them in the semifinals? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think that puts them in the semifinals on Friday. They can win a day 3 game, right, and get into the semifinals and then maybe lose. But if that happens, if you played on Tuesday and you lose in the semifinals on Friday, you've gotten 2 more wins. If you play on Wednesday and lose in the semifinals I said that wrong. See, I'm getting all jumbled up. Tuesday's day 1, Wednesday's day 2, Thursday's day 3. If you get the double bye and you don't play until Thursday, you win a game, you lose in the semifinals on Friday, you won 1 game. If you play on Wednesday and lose in the semifinals on Friday, you've won 2 games. You boosted that win total and ideally given yourself, improved your net ranking, improved some of the different metrics with your performance there. So I do think it would behoove Pitt to end up outside the top 4 but inside the top 8. To play on Wednesday to get a day 2 game and potentially, add 2 more wins, without having to win in the semifinals and make the ACC championship game. And I think they're positioning themselves for that. Now, does that get them into the NCAA tournament? If they beat Florida State, beat NC State, and win 2 games and get to the semifinals of the ACC tournament, does that give them in? I don't know. Some of them might depend on who they play on Thursday. That if they win on Wednesday, who do they play in that quarterfinals game? That might, that will impact it for sure. But I think you start looking at a win total that is, you're looking at 23 wins. And it's not that they haven't held a 23, it's not that 23 win teams haven't failed to make the tournament in the past. But I would think if Pitt could get to that level with the way they're playing and the way they would finish. I mean, look, they're 6-2 since January. They're 6-2 since the start of February. If they win two more, it'll be 8-2, and two more. If they're 10-2 or 10-3 over their final 13 games, I mean, I think you've got a team that's doing all the things you want it to do. It's taking care of business. It's winning big on the road. It wins a couple games in the ACC tournament and gets itself to the semifinals. I think you're making a pretty strong case for yourself. So, Michael B., you asked, how many more wins does Pitt need? I think if they could get 4 more wins, they should I would think they should get in. 3 wins is going to be a tougher call. If they lose one of these next 2, they're in big trouble and probably out. So, long way around to get to your answer there, Michael B., but that's how I see it. Donnie Lightning is a super chatter. Donnie, I'm looking for your comment. What do you got here? Where's Donnie Lightning? Donnie Lightning, I'm missing your comment. I appreciate you being a super chatter, though, very much. I'll keep looking for it. John Marzullo says, Chris, can you go over potential tiebreaker scenarios for ACC tournament standings? Like head-to-head. I forget, actually, after that. I would have to look it up. You guys don't want to sit here while I screw around with this and try to, read all these things. We'll find it out. We'll figure it out and kind of lay it out on Panther-Lair.com. And certainly we'll have a lot of things that we're keeping an eye on over the next, week heading into the ACC tournament. But again, I feel like you want to end up playing on day 2. Personally, I think you benefit more from getting the extra win than you would from being able to say, "Wow, we finished top 4 in the ACC and got a got a double bye." So, I think Pitt's in the sweet spot where they want to be right now, or where they should want to be. And if I'm them, I want to stay there. Let's see. Donnie Lightning, I saw you were a super chatter. I'm going to keep an eye out for your comment. I don't see anything yet, but I appreciate you being one. We got a lot of comments and questions to get through here. If you want to make sure that we read your comment or read your question, you can be a super chatter, and we'll definitely get to you. Benjamin Glazer asks, is it just me, or does it seem like Guillermo is shooting and making more threes? So Guillermo's 2 of 5 from 3 tonight. That was all of his shots were all outside the arc. He attempted 3 at Clemson, 3 against Virginia Tech, 2 at Wake Forest, 1 against Louisville, 3 at Virginia. It's more or less in line. He's good for like 1 to 3 attempts per game. He had more tonight. His season high and career high. He attempted 6 against North Carolina. Otherwise, I think he only had 1 other game this season where he had more than 3. That was the West Virginia game. He was 3 of 4 from 3 in that game. 2 of 5 tonight. The best thing about it with Guillermo, I mean, we know he can make those shots, but I feel like he has not, I mean, at least in the last few games, he has not forced a 3. All of his 3s that he's taken have been good shots. They've been open shots. They were shots that, there wasn't a single time in the Clemson game or in this game tonight where I said, oh, no, don't do that. Don't take that shot. That's a bad shot. No, he had open shots. They were good shots, and I think he can make them enough that you want him to keep shooting. I mean, he's a legitimate 3-point threat out there. And if teams don't guard him, if teams have to overcompensate to focus on the guards or to focus on Hinson, he will knock them down. It's just like Zach Austin will knock those shots down, and they can do it with enough regularity that I'm good with them taking those shots. So yeah, he increased his shot total tonight up to 5, which again was the second most of the season. But I don't think anything has really changed lately. I think he's more or less been in that 1 to 3 range, which is where he's been pretty much all season long. Josh Newark wants to know, did we just lose Bub to the NBA tonight? Fabulous week for him. I mean, Bub Carrington was outstanding. 27 points, 10 of 18 from the floor, 7 of 12 from 3, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Played great in that game. The game at Clemson, he was 5 of 12, scored 18 points, and had 7 rebounds and 3 assists. The Virginia Tech game, he only had 7 points. I really think you go back, like I think we're seeing Bub Carrington really hit his stride now. He was 3 of 13 in the Wake Forest game. He scored 9 points, 3 of 13 shooting, he had 3 rebounds, 2 assists and 3 turnovers. And that was after he had 8 assists against Louisville, but only scored 5 points. I think he was sort of fading a little bit there. And fading's probably not the right word, but he was slumping a little bit. And he 3 of 13 at Wake Forest is good evidence of that. And then he goes to the Virginia Tech game and picks up 2 quick fouls. 2 fouls pretty early and sits most of the first half. Played maybe like 5 minutes or something like that. But then I thought in the second half he came out and was really efficient, was really solid. You know what I mean? Didn't force things. He ended up with 7 points. He was 3 of 4 from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3. He had 1 assist, 2 turnovers, but again, he was in limited minutes, so he wasn't doing a whole lot playing with the fouls. But I thought it seemed like he turned a little bit of a corner. He was much better in the second half against Virginia Tech than he had been in the first half when he got into foul trouble and in the Wake Forest game the week before. And then at Clemson, I thought he was really good too. I thought he was Pitt's best player in that game at Clemson, and he carried that over to tonight, and it just did so many things really well. I mean, obviously the shooting is a big part. I mean, his 3-point shooting was on. He had some of the mid-range jumpers. I'd still like to see him trying to go to the rim a little more often. There was a point. I mean, there were a lot of points in this game when Quentin Post was killing Pitt, but there was a point when Post was really killing Pitt where I thought, and I said, Pitt's best hope right now might be just having Carrington, Jalen Lowe, and Ishmael Leggett driving at Quentin Post and hoping you can draw a couple fouls and get him off the court in foul trouble. That ultimately never happened. Post did pick up 2 fouls with about a minute left to go in the first half, but it wasn't enough to really make an impact. And obviously, he finished with 30 points, so he didn't really do much to take him out of his game. But I'd like to see that more out of Carrington. Jalen Lowe's really comfortable driving. Ishmael Leggett is a football player out there, and how he tries to go and initiate contact. Bub Carrington had a number of drives tonight where he was going to the hoop, but he sort of pulled up and sort of dribbled along the baseline and dribbled back out. And he did it maybe 2 or 3 times that I can remember. I want to see him go to the basket. I want to see him finish that way because he's doing pretty much everything right now. He's doing everything really, really well and playing at a high level. His synergy with Jalen Lowe is outstanding. He's doing a great job finding his teammates, setting guys up. That hockey assist that who talked about that? I think Mike Young talked about that. The Virginia Tech coach talked about that. The hockey assist. He's playing really, really well. Did he just play himself into the NBA tonight? I don't know. I mean, he's got at least 3 more games this season that he needs to focus on, and when he can continue to make his case as a future pro. And he's probably already made his case as a future pro. It's just a question of how soon he'll become a pro. Let's see. I lost my place here. I'm trying to scroll through. Homer Simpson says, it's nice to see the ACC Network post-game crew giving Pitt some respect and everybody saying we should be in the tournament. They made some good points. We win the next 2, we should be in. The ACC Network crew was really positive about Pitt. They gave him a lot of positive press, a lot of positive pub, Jim Boeheim among them, and rightfully so. And they just watched this team look about as good as a team can look, making everything and defending pretty well. And, one guy beat them, but nobody else did. Let's see. Finkel Entertainment says Virginia and Wake Forest lost. Now we want Clemson and Syracuse to lose, and we can get the double bye. Yeah, but like I said, you kind of go back and forth about that, about whether you want the double bye. I mean, give me the game against Virginia Tech, or if Louisville gets by in an upset. And I know the seedings are going to change after tonight, but give me that game. Log another win. You know what I mean? Bank another win. I think you get more value out of that than you get out of not playing until Thursday. I think you get more value out of adding to your win total against a conference opponent on a neutral court than you get out of being able to say, well, we finished 4th in the ACC. I don't know if that's going to help you as much. I mean, they could get there, and that'd be great. I mean, because if they get to the double bye, it obviously means that they continue to win, and that's the most important thing right now. But I think piling up more wins is probably more important and probably going to help you more. Nicholas Garrett says Pitt must win their next 3 games. If they do that, they have a solid shot to get in. Win 4, definitely in. Well, and I mean, that's, yeah, and Nicholas follows up and says, I prefer not getting the double bye. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Is like you start, they're up to 19 wins right now. If you could win 4 more games, you get these 2 in the regular season. If you get 2 in the ACC tournament, you're at 23 wins. You're really making it difficult to keep you out. You're really making it hard for the NCAA tournament committee to not select you. And so that's, I think that's sort of the upside. And you don't want to take a win for granted. You want to just assume, well, they're definitely going to win on Wednesday. If they don't get the double bye, they'll definitely win on Wednesday, and then they'll probably win on Thursday. No, you don't want to assume that stuff, but you're going to give yourself a better chance to get another win if you play on Wednesday rather than skipping ahead to Thursday. Kevin Gagliardi says, Bub shot the lights out. Been a fun season, and the Twin Tower defense is effective because of the extra height on the help. Sure hope the young guys stay. And then Tim McConkey followed up and said, can't stop thinking about Guillermo playing the 4. Big time development right there. I'm really curious to see if that happens more going forward. I'm sure Jeff Capel was asked about it. Here's the only thing. So that was a viable option tonight, particularly in the first half, because Blake Hinson was out. Because Blake Hinson was out with foul trouble. They didn't put Guillermo and Federico on the court together with Blake Hinson. They did it again for the final 2.5 minutes or so. But by that point, Hinson was already out of the game. I think at the 3:37 mark or somewhere around there. Oh no, I guess they brought in those 2 guys for the final 3.5 minutes. Excuse me. And when they did it in the final 3.5 minutes, they brought in Federico. Guillermo was already on the court. They brought in Federico, and Hinson left the court. So they didn't use Federico and Guillermo together with Blake Hinson. And I mentioned that, and I say that because, look, they're not going to take Blake Hinson off the court unless they have to. Right? So if they're hesitant to put Guillermo, Federico, and Blake on the court together, you know what I mean? If they're only going to use that, Federico and Guillermo together when they have the 3 guards or the 2 guards in Zach Austin, well, then you're limited in how much you're actually going to do it because they're not going to take Blake Hinson off the court. Now, if you're comfortable with Blake Hinson moving and playing sort of a 3 role as opposed to the 4, and you're comfortable going 2 guards, Hinson, and the 2 big guys, then maybe that's something you could explore. But they didn't do it tonight. It was 10.5, 10:40, 10:48, somewhere around there. Just shy of 11 minutes that they played those 2 guys together, Federico and Guillermo, and none of them were with Hinson. The other thing, too, is you are limited in how much you can play those 2 guys together because they're your centers, right? You can't have them on the court for like 25 minutes together because you need somebody to play center the other 15 minutes. And, unless they go with the other like surprise random one-off game development of playing Will Jeffress there, you're going to be a little bit limited in how much you can do that. So, for spot duty here or there, for the final 7 minutes of the first half or something like that, final 3 minutes of the second half, 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes in the game total over 2 or 3 different stretches, yeah, I think you could do it. But number one, how much are you taking Blake Hinson off the court? And number two, you really can't overdo it because they're your only centers. You don't have anybody else who can play. But it does create an interesting option for next season of playing Guillermo Diaz-Graham at the 4. Blake Hinson's going to be gone. You're going to need another power forward. I don't think you want to go with Will Jeffress as your starting 30-minute per game 4. So, I mean, if you have another center, if Papa Conti is ready to play or you bring in a transfer or whatever it may be, and you don't need Guillermo to play the 5, then it makes sense. It makes sense to move him out to a wing. You know what I mean? It makes sense to have him play kind of in the Blake Hinson role, getting open shots like Blake gets, whether it's on the baseline plays or the pick and pops or whatever it is, like that first 3 that he made 15 seconds into the game. I loved that play they ran. They won the tip and they came down, and Hinson set the screen and then popped out and got the ball beyond the arc and drained the three. 15 seconds in, first shot of the game, first set of the game, first possession of the game, and it was great because of coming out of that Clemson game where he was 0-4 from three. Not only he didn't make any, he didn't shoot enough. It was clearly not a good game for Blake Hinson. And not the kind of game that he's become accustomed to, not the kind of game that Pitt needs from him, and not the kind of game where he does what he does. And so to come out and the first shot of the game, the first set they run is getting him a look from deep. Like, I think it was known. First possession, the ball's going to Blake for a three. And as soon as he caught the ball beyond the arc, I was sitting here and I said, shoot that. Like, shoot that. You have to shoot that shot. And as soon as he shot it, I said, that's going in. You just knew it. You knew that the ball had to go to Hinson on the first possession. You knew he had to shoot a three on the first possession. And I was pretty sure it was going to go down. That's what that was how they needed to bounce back, or not even bounce back, but move on from the Clemson game by draining that three. And it was a great start. But again, bringing it back to the two centers thing, I don't know how much you can do it, because how much do you want to take Blake Hinson off the court, right? All right. Let's see. Kevin Gagliardi said, oh, no, I just read Kevin's comment and Tim McConkey's comment. Let's scroll through. Anthony Tennyson says, Chris, if they win the last two, and at least, Anthony, you left a number out. Says, I'm going to read verbatim what you wrote here, Tony. Says, Chris, if they win the last two and at least in the ACC tourney, that should put them in, I think, for sure. I don't know if you said at least one or at least two. Come on, man. You left out a key number there. But we're all talking about scenarios, though. That's a big part of it. Lad Scrimpton says, just tuned in, so sorry if this was mentioned. Wake Forest lost today, that's right. Virginia Tech beat Wake Forest 87-76. At Virginia Tech, Wake Forest continues to be a team that cannot win on the road. They're just not very good on the road, and that continues to be the case. So yeah, Wake Forest lost, and that'll affect the standings. MW Pitt says we need to finish 5th in the ACC. Low odds of 6 going in from the ACC. I don't know. Not sure you're you want to finish 5th rather than 6th, I guess is what you're saying. Lad Scrimpton says the Wake Forest loss takes away a quad 1 win from Pitt, but also lets Pitt leapfrog Wake in the standings. Do you think Wake Forest losing on the road, is that going to drop them out of the top 30 in the net? I forget where they were coming into today, but I mean that's right. That's 1 through 30. If you beat 1 through 30 at home, it's a quad 1 win. I don't know if losing on the road, that shouldn't hurt you as much, but it depends on. I forget where Wake Forest was and how far they're going to drop. Oh, okay. Here, this is the kind of response you get after a 25-point win on the road. RJ Seaman 38. Pitt is done. Stick a fork in them. Stop the crap. Guys, really? How do you watch a 25-point blowout win on the road where your team shoots over 50% from the floor and 50% from three? Where you have a freshman guard score 27 points, your best player has a quote-unquote quiet game and only scores 19, where your centers combine for 16 points, where your other freshman guard goes for 12, 6, and 9 with 2 turnovers. I don't know how you watch a game like that and your reaction, your thought, the thing you want to say to the world during this post-game show is, Pitt's done, stick a fork in them. It's a Saturday night, RJC, man. Live it up a little bit. Enjoy yourself. Nicholas Garrett says, if you had one game back this year, which is it? All due respect to our good friend Smenges on the message board, I'll answer this question. I know Smenges doesn't want me to talk about games that we wish we had back. I've said I think there's three. I mean, I think the Missouri game kills them because that's a terrible loss at home. I think the game at Syracuse hurts because that could have been a good win, and it's one where they left 16 points at the free throw line. And then I think this Clemson game last week, this past week, that's a rough one. You're up double digits in the first half. You go like 2 of 7 or something on layups in the first half. You have 5 of 15 in the game on layups. You missed 10 layups. It's a totally different game if you just make the bunnies. You know what I mean? You make the easy shots, and then that gives you a quad 1 win on the road, a huge win. So take your pick of those three. I think switching the outcome of any of those three makes a pretty significant impact on Pitt's resume, their net ranking, and likely their spot in the NCAA tournament. You take away, I think the Missouri game stands as the worst loss on Pitt's record this year. So you could take that away. Or in the case of the Syracuse or Clemson games, you add 2 good road wins. And I guess the Clemson game will be a better road win than the Syracuse game. So maybe that one. I think that would be the one that, boy, you really let that get away. You had a double-digit lead in the first half. You just couldn't extend it because you couldn't make the layups. RJC Man 38 came in as a super chatter, says the Wake Forest loss was a momentum killer. Selection committee will not erase that loss from their memory. But so selection committee is not going to erase the Wake Forest loss from their memory. Are they going to erase the Duke win from their memory? Are they going to erase the Virginia win from their memory? Are they going to erase the way that Pitt has played since the start of February from their memory? Are they going to erase the fact that Pitt looks really dangerous right now? That Pitt just went on the road against a conference opponent and won by 25? No, they're not going to erase the Wake Forest loss from their memory. They're not going to erase the Missouri loss from their memory. Pitt had some bad losses. Pitt had some rough losses. The Wake Forest game was a quad 1 loss on the road. And they got blown out, but it was a loss on the road against a good team. So that's not quite the same as the Missouri game, which I think probably hurts them more. If they get left out, it's not going to be because they got blown out at Wake Forest. I mean, it's part of it. It's all part of the resume, but that's not going to be the game that does it. The Missouri game probably hurts them more. This Clemson game hurts them more or stood as a bigger opportunity. It was a bad loss. It was a rough loss. It was a big blowout loss, but that's not the game I would look at. I'd pick at least 3 other games before that one when I talk about reasons if Pitt misses the NCAA tournament, games that led to that outcome. Let's scroll in here. H2P STRU says, Chris, what is your opinion on the emphasis of margin of victory now because of net? I think we see a brawl over it in the future or a star getting hurt playing at what used to be mop-up minutes. Yeah, and coaches have been talking about this. A lot of coaches have been talking about keeping their players in, not putting their – and not putting in their walk-ons and trying to extend that lead, doing everything they can to keep firing away and keep pushing the lead up because that's what the metrics demand. I think there are, I don't know. We see like the net rankings. We see how the net rankings get impacted and it creates the quad 1 wins and the quad 2 wins and all of this. But then we're told that the net rankings don't necessarily carry all that much weight. You know what I mean? They don't even carry as much weight as the old RPI used to. And they sort of only, it seems like for the selection committee, the net rankings ultimately are less about where you rank and more about where the teams you beat and lost to rank. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter that you're a top 15 net ranked team. It matters how you did against quad 1 net ranked teams, right? Or how you did against quad 3, or did you lose to any quad 4 teams, or did you beat quad 2 teams consistently? Like it's a weird thing. And I think the margin of victory weighs heaviest with the net rankings out of all the metrics that are sort of considered. But I think it sort of counts in that way. It's not about you. It's about the teams you played and the teams you beat or the teams you lost and what we think of them. So it's, it doesn't feel like margin of victory should be a significant thing. Maybe you could cut it off and say like 10 points or more. Everything after 10 sort of counts as the same. And you could weigh a 1-point victory versus a 10-point victory differently. But you would weigh a 1-point victory versus a 30-point victory the same way you'd weigh a 1-point victory versus a 10-point. Like make a cutoff number, a normalization number, or a number where you normalize everything down to that number. Maybe that's the way to approach it. It seems like the coaches don't like margin of victory for the competitive reasons that you're talking about. That you're either going to start a brawl and make people mad because you keep scoring, or just opportunities to get the walk-ons in. Although, obviously, Boston College had those opportunities tonight to get the walk-ons in. But, maybe that's the change. You sort of standardize it or normalize it. That it's a win by 10 or more, they all count the same. It doesn't matter if you win by 40 or you win by 11. It all sort of counts the same. And maybe that would, I don't want to say it would discourage running up the score, but maybe it wouldn't encourage running up the score. Let's see. Scrolling through here. See if anybody we haven't heard from yet. I'm trying to find somebody that we haven't heard from yet, and I don't understand entirely what you guys are. Some of the comments, I think you're just sort of talking to each other. Will Z says Pitt has to win the next 4 to make it, in my opinion, and I don't want the double bye. Get a simpler team to add to the W's. Yeah, you don't want to take any team for granted. You don't want to take any, assume any victory. But I think getting Virginia Tech or Louisville on, as opposed to waiting and getting, the teams that are still alive on day 3, I think you would very much rather have that. You know what I mean? Like if you're a team that right now is going to get a double bye and you're looking at it and you're like, I'm going to I'm going to probably play Pitt, right? I forget who would have been the next, Virginia or somebody like that. I think the latest, the projection before today or something, I think it was Virginia was going to be the team that Pitt would play on Thursday if they win on Wednesday. And if I'm Virginia and I'm looking at it, I'm like, my first team is going to be against Pitt. I would much rather play Virginia Tech or Louisville and then Pitt. And so if you're Pitt, you'd much prefer to play the winner of the 11-15 game and then move on to the more challenging game on Thursday, rather than just diving into what will be a more challenging game on Thursday. I think that, I think most of us are in agreement about that. I don't think, the respect you would get from being a top 4 seed or being, in the double bye, I don't think that helps you as much as, like I said, as just stacking wins. Let's go over a couple things here from this game, though. A couple numbers as it comes down. Pitt shot 54.1% from the field, 53.3% from 3. They made 8 of 10 free throws. I'll give a quick shout out to the refs here. There were 25 fouls called, which is a lot for sure. But only 14 free throws attempted between the two teams. Pitt went 3 of 3 from the free throw line in the second half. Boston College shot 4 total, and they were all in the second half. Boston College didn't shoot any free throws in the first half, and so I appreciate the refs not calling a lot of fouls. 25 feels like a lot of fouls, but there weren't a lot of shooting fouls. They were largely just sort of playing. Pitt had. They lost the rebounding battle 33-32, but they did. They lost the offensive rebounding battle too. But that was, you're probably not going to get a ton of offensive rebounds when you shoot 54%. They did end up with 20 assists on 33 made baskets. That's pretty good if you're getting 2 out of every 3. That's a pretty good number to get. And they only turned the ball over 5 times. So shout out to Pitt on that regard. And 4 of the 5 came from Bub Carrington and Jalen Lowe, and I don't think anybody would take any issue with how those guys played in this game. Jalen Lowe almost had a double-double. He had 12.6 rebounds, 9 assists. Federico went for 8 and 6. Ishmael Leggett had 6 and 7. Bub Carrington, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Blake Hinson got an assist, so it was that kind of night. But overall, I mean, just pretty impressive game from Pitt, a dominant game. And where they really were in control. They ran into that little bit of an issue when Blake Hinson got 2 fouls, and he had to come out of the game. Pitt was up 12 at that point. Boston College went on a 12-2 run. Pitt went 0 of 6 from the floor in that stretch. It was about just under 5 minutes. But then Guillermo made a 3. Bub scored on a fast break. And then it was really just off to the races. And they went 19. Pitt was on a 19-9 run for the remainder of the first half. Basically, the final 9 minutes of the first half, 7 of which had Federico, and Guillermo Diaz-Graham on the court together, at which point they scored 11 points combined. So Pitt went on a 19-9 run, and Guillermo and Federico scored 11 of those 19. Pretty impressive performance. And then in the second half, they just dominated. 43-33. They were plus 10. They were actually plus 15 in the first half, which was a little more impressive. But you end up plus 25. You win a conference game on the road by 25. I'd say you had a heck of a night. Let's see if there's any other comments or questions to get to in here as we roll through. Let's see. I'll just read the last few here. Josh Newark says, I want the 4 seed for the single argument that you finished in the top 4 of the ACC. John Kristofich says, we want the double bye so we have a better chance to win the ACC tournament. Will Z says, that's a good point from National Optics, but isn't the ACC's name kind of mud anyways right now? And I think that's the point. I don't think you're going to get a lot in terms of like, wow, on this team's resume, they finished top 4 in the ACC. Like if it's top 4 versus top 5, I don't know if it makes a big difference. Top 4 versus top 6, I don't know if it makes a big difference. It's a 15-team conference. If you finish the top 4 or the top 6, I don't think it makes a huge difference in terms of your as Will says, your optics. I don't think you're going to get that much more respect for it. I think the ACC's reputation hurts that. So I don't think that helps you as much as getting another win does. And I think you're going to have a better opportunity to get another win if you play that extra game on Wednesday. If you just have the single bye and play that extra game. Josh Newark says, speaking of tonight's game, man, did BC take some ugly, unathletic shots. And you know what? I mean, what really happened here and the difference in this game versus some of the other games they've lost, the Wake Forest game, the Clemson game, is, there was that one guy going off against them in Quentin Post, but nobody else got anything going. Nobody else really did anything against Pitt in this game. Post scored 30, Boston College had 65. So he had almost half their points. He had more than half their made field goals. He even made 2 threes. The team made 9, and he had 2 of them. Quentin Post did everything in this game, but nobody else did anything. So I don't think Pitt went into the game saying, we'll let Quentin Post beat us. We're going to make sure that nobody else does. But that was sort of how it worked out. And, they just, I believe there are other good players on that Boston College team, but none of them played very well tonight. All right, let's see if anything else you guys, what you want to say. Here we go. I'm not even going to do it. I was gonna finish with a ridiculous comment, but you know what? We're not going to do that. We're not going to go with the ridiculous comment. We're just going to say that Pitt wins by 25 tonight, 90-65. Panthers improve. They get to 19 wins, and they're still in it. You know what I mean? I don't think they're out of the hunt for the the NCAA tournament. They just have to keep fighting. They have to keep winning. You can't have a letdown against Florida State. You can't have a letdown against NC State. You can't have a letdown certainly in the first game of the ACC tournament and maybe even in your second game of the ACC tournament. They have to keep winning. And this team is going to come out of this game with a lot of confidence, for sure. And on Tuesday night against Florida State, we'll see how it carries over to playing at home again. But Pitt wins 90-65. They beat Boston College. Final road game of the season, final true road game of the season, which means this is our final post-game show of the regular season. But we'll have post-game shows after the ACC tournament games for sure. And anything that comes after that, NIT, NCAA tournament, CBI? Is there still a CBI? I don't think there is. But anything that Pitt plays after these two home games, any more games they play away from home, we'll have a post-game show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You don't want to miss any of these post-game shows. They're always fun. And then, of course, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Me and Jim Hammett get together and talk with you about Pitt sports. So come and hang out for that. Daily morning Pitt shows that we have Monday through Friday. And then don't forget the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all your Pitt sports news. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Pitt wins. It was a fun game to watch. It's always fun when a team puts on a show like that, and Pitt certainly did. So thanks everybody who watched tuned in for the live stream. Thanks everybody who contributed in the chat, all the super chatters. We appreciate everybody. And have a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you on Monday for the morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.